Hi, hello everybody. It is me, Cecilia. Welcome back to my channel. It's been a minute. We're not gonna explain it, but the only thing I'll say is I live in my own apartment now. The light is hitting behind me. Yeah, that's the only update I got for y'all. But I'm not gonna explain why I haven't posted in like 9 months. You know, we don't need to hear that. But I figured I should talk about some of the books I've read so far in 2022. This isn't all of it because I'm gonna try to talk about it like in 10 book increments or 10 section increments as I go through books because I don't feel the point. You know what I mean? I'm not gonna sit here and do like a whole long ass video. I'm just gonna talk about some books I've read. If you like that, stay here, like, comment, subscribe, you know, the whole shebang. But I don't know, let's get into it, I guess. During this like little binge that I had, sometimes I'll just get like kind of slumpish and I just like binge read a romance series like up into like keep reading every book one after succession until I'm bored of it. And that really happened in December of 2021, but I finished the last book in this binge at the beginning of 2022, and that was Barbarian Mine by Ruby Dixon. This is the 4th book in the Ice Planet Barbarian series. Listen, that series, it's not great. Listen, okay, it is an erotic science fiction romance series between humans and blue dick aliens and it's guilty pleasure, okay? Ruby Dixon can write a sex scene, that's all I'll say. And so of course this is the 4th book and I don't really want to say spoilers because there is like plot details you find out through the other books, so you do need to read the series in order or you're gonna be confused. This was like my least favorite of the 4 that I read, and at this point, as typical of romance series, each book follows a different couple, and at this point I didn't see any other couples that I really cared to read another book about. I mean, there's like 12 women, so there's gonna be minimum 12 books in the series, and there was no point in me in reading the other ones. I read it from all the characters I needed to read from. I didn't see anything interesting happening with the plot. I was good on the sexiness, right? So I gave that one 2.5 stars because it was fine. Now on to the next one. I found this entire series at the thrift store for $1.99 and it felt so nostalgic for me, so I bought it and I read the first two books in the series. That is Meet Felicity and Felicity Learns a Lesson by, I think these books are by Valia Tripp. She wrote like all the American Girl books. So if you don't know, you probably don't. I was absolutely obsessed with American Girl things. I actually had Felicity the doll that I found at the estate sale for like $20, and I absolutely loved all all American Girl things, movies, except I never read the books because I wasn't a book reader. And when I found the whole series, each one of these again was like $1.50 each. I bought them all and I've never been more happy. So I read the first 2 of them. I gave these both 3 stars because they're not fantastic. They are middle grade historical fiction novels. They're cute little stories, and they're just kind of there to teach, I guess, little kids about history and morality and stuff like this. Meet Felicity is about, of course, you meet Felicity and you know she's a horse girl. She sees this horse that is kind of being abused by a neighbor, and so she puts it in herself that she needs to save the horse. And then in this one, she starts taking etiquette lessons, and she's taking etiquette lessons from some women who were, some girls that were actually from England and came over to the colonies. This is set in like during the American Revolution, if I didn't explain that for some reason. And so like these are fine, you know, it gives you a very, very basic understanding of the American Revolution to children, which, I mean, it does get some things weird. I mean, like, there was mention of slavery, but like, in a, oh my gosh, like, I can't believe we don't pay them. Like, I'm sorry, there was more atrocities happening with slavery than we're not getting paid. I'm just saying. But it was a good time. I'm gonna read the rest of the series, which is 4 more books, so you're gonna see them scattered around in these recent reads. Sorry if you can hear construction. Jesus. I could never film because, again, they're building apartments like right next to my apartment ever since I moved in, so it can get loud sometimes, but hopefully it's not too bad. Okay, so the next book I read gave me an epiphany on my reading taste, like that I'm gonna have later, and it's An Emotion of Great Delight by Tahereh Mafi. Now this is a YA contemporary that is just sad. There's like nothing happy that happens to the characters in this book. It is set in, I think, 2003, in the early 2000s. We follow our main character. I'm blanking on her name. I'll put it up on the screen. She's going through a lot. She's dealing with the death of her brother that happened a year prior, and it goes through 2 different timelines. It happens like modern day, and you see what happens right about before or around when her brother died. So she's dealing with that. She's dealing with some potential romance. She's dealing with the loss of her best friend. Like, not that her best friend died, but that they're not friends anymore. It's very interesting the way that it's talked about, but the reason why, like, I gave it 4 stars. I really enjoyed the book. I realized that I don't care about high school stories anymore. Maybe just because I'm 23, I'm gonna turn 24 in a couple months. I don't care. I don't care to read about high schoolers anymore. And so I think that unless if it's a fantasy or sci-fi, I'm going to say no to YA books, like as a whole in general. Like even the queer stories, even the, like, I'm glad they're coming out. I just don't want to read them because I know that I'm not going to enjoy them and I'm not going to rate them highly. So I'm just going to stay away. I got rid of all of my YA books. I think all the YA books I haven't read that weren't fantasy or sci-fi, because those ones I intend to do enjoy more, but I'm just tired. I don't really want to read them anymore. So yeah. All right, the next book I'm going to talk about is was one of our Phase and Gaze picks. This is our Phase and Gaze pick for December, but I don't know. The way I made this list doesn't make any sense, but I read it technically at the beginning of January. And it is Elatsoe by Darcy Littlebadger. This is a YA borderline middle grade. It's like on that weird cusp fantasy story. Why am I blanking for a minute? I was like, what am I talking about? It's been a while since I filmed, can you tell? We follow our main character, Elatsoe. One of her, I think it was her cousin, had died by being murdered. She also has the power, like the ability to see dead, just to see the dead pretty much, and commune with the dead and stuff like that. And you really see her go try to find out what actually happened to her cousin. And this book, I originally gave it a 4, and as I've thought about it, it's more of like a 3.5 star. It felt very basic, like felt very surface level. Like this, I think this would have been like fantastic when I was like 14, but again, now that I'm 23, it was just basic. It was fine. I didn't like, sure, yeah, it was fun. It was fine. Like I didn't get anything out, not get anything out of it, but like, it didn't wow me, it didn't impress me. Like, I just enjoyed it. And so I'm gonna leave the live show link down below for Elatsoe if you are curious on what mine and our other co-hosts' thoughts were on it. All right, so the next one I read, I got into like a whole audio book binge, so some of these were definitely audiobooks. Well, An Emotion of Great Delight was as well, but so is the one I'm gonna talk about. And that was Sankofa by Chimbondu Onuzo. Hi, this is Editing Me. I completely butchered the name and title, the author's name and the title of the book. I don't know what was going through my head when I filmed this clip, but the title of the book is Sankofa by Chimbondu Onuzo. This is a adult contemporary literary story, and we are it follows this woman who is who's lived in England her whole life, and she is mixed race, and she's never known her father. Her mother died not too long ago, and she's kind of just in a rut in her life. She is in the process of divorcing her husband, and her daughter doesn't really talk to her and is suffering from an eating disorder, and she's just trying to figure out her life. And she finds out that her father is actually the leader, like a former dictator of a country in Africa. But she goes there to kind of meet her father and try to learn a little bit more about her culture. And this one I also gave a 3 star, and there's a couple of reasons for it. One, every character that wasn't our main character was not fleshed out at all. Everyone was very one note. Like, for example, her daughter's whole personality was that she had an eating disorder. That was the only thing we ever found out about her and that we knew about her, was that she had an eating disorder. Her husband, the only thing we didn't know anything about anybody other people. Everyone was very one note, one dimensional. And even with our main character, she seemed to not really question anything. You know, she finds out that her father is this former dictator. He was an actual dictator who ruled for like 30 years. And before she goes to Africa, she does not bother to do a Google search on him to see like, oh, I don't know, if I found out someone that was a dictator, I'd be like, well, what the fuck they do? Because dictator, you probably did some questionable shit, right? I would at least Google his name, what he did, because she shows up to Africa, she doesn't know shit. She was giving, it was giving the same energy as people from 90 Day Fiancé. Like, come on, at least do a simple Google search. This was in the present day. There is no excuse, girl. There was no excuse. And it just annoyed me. The entire book just annoyed me because I just kept thinking about that point. But also just the plot wasn't there. Again, everything was one-dimensional, but it wasn't like, I didn't feel the need to DNF. Does that make sense? I was still like curious to see where everything went, hence why it got 3 stars. You know, it was okay. I could still see myself recommending this book to people, but you know, again, it was still fine. So the next book I read was kind of different than the rest of the books I was talking about, but I thought it was really good. It's actually a short story collection. It's called Suncranes and Other Stories, Modern Mongolian Short Fiction. Now, I actually heard about this book from a YouTube channel that I found that I've absolutely been loving. I've been reading, wow, I've been watching a bunch of their videos, Books and Bow. I've been getting a lot of book recommendations from them and it's just been great. But I heard this one, I requested it from my library, they bought the book and I got to read it. And overall, I gave the collection about a 3.5 star. It's a short story collection, so you're gonna read some books that are fantastic, right? I read some of the stories in there that goddamn changed me as a person, right? And then I read some that were absolute shit, like god awful, hence why it's like a 3.5 star. The reason why I gave it that little extra half star is because even the ones that were not good, they were all a little different than books I've read. I've never read like a book from Mongolia or from a Mongolian author, and even though they were all written in different decades and different time periods, I was able to see like different sort of writing styles. A lot of the stories had to do with nature and how just traditional like Mongolian practices and ways. It was nice because at the back of the book there was like a glossary of different terms that would be used, and I found myself by the end of the story, I was like, oh yeah, I know exactly what that is, and actually learning a lot about Mongolian culture through this book, or through these short stories. I'm gonna put on the screen or down and below some of my favorite stories, because I can't remember. I think my favorite story of all was The Young Couple, and if you could find that story somewhere, girl, read it, because it was good. It was good. It was so good. Also, a little gripe I have with it is that this book was called Modern Mongolian Short Fiction, like the story collection was. The most modern I think we had was 2003, and this book came out in like 2019, so I was like, was there no... When I'm thinking modern, I'm thinking something that came out within the last 20 years. So, you know what I mean? We didn't get anything from that. I think the earliest we got was in the 1910s or something like that. And again, to 2003. And I was still thinking, where's the modern? Last night, I started watching Young, Rich, and African or something like that. And it was weird because everyone was in their late 30s, early 40s. I'm like, where's the young? I'm sorry, like, some of you guys have like teenage children. I wouldn't consider you young at that point. That's just me. I don't know, but it was weird. So, but other than that, I really enjoyed the short story collection. If you want to read, like, learn a little bit more about Mongolian fiction, I think this is a good place to start. Next book is another audiobook that was very mid. We got Sankofa, and then we have this one. This is the Mermaid from Jeju? By Sumi Han. I gave this one a 2.5 star. This is a historical fiction book set in South Korea. Part of the reason why this is low is because I don't know if I could tell you what happened. I was very, very confused throughout this whole book because the way it was written didn't make any sense to me. So like the first quarter of the book, we were following this one girl from this village and her kind of blossoming romance with a guy who lived on the mountain of Jeju Mountain? Why am I blanking on what the mountain's called? I'm sorry, the birds are chirping. The birds are having a glorious time outside my window, apparently. Yeah, that was the first like quarter of the story, and I was like, okay, I could see where this is going. And then the second quarter of the story turned into like a weird thriller. It was very tonally different, but I was like kind of enjoying it. You know, there was the occupation of the American forces in there, and we're like, who can we trust? What is happening? And it got really interesting. And then the second half of the book was, what the fuck was that? What the fuck was that? It was like, it went, every other chapter switched to perspective. So like part of the second half was taking place in the US in the 2000s. Was it in the 2000s? I don't remember the specific year. I think it was like 2003 or something like that. And because spoiler alert, a couple who were getting together at the beginning of the book got married, moved to the US, had some children, and the girl has died at this point. And her husband, who's living on the mountain, actually decides to go back to Jeju just to experience it again, right? While the other half takes place in I really don't even know. It was before they had left South Korea, but it was after the other parts of the story, and I was very confused of how all that was going down. So I was confused of what the fuck was happening. Nothing made sense. Again, why it's like not a 2, well, it's a 2.5 and not a 2 is because I actually like was semi-interested in what it was like, what was happening, and I was curious to see where it was going. This is just not a well-formatted book. This needed a better editor. I needed another draft because it just was not good. The writing was decent. But the way it was formatted was terrible. So the next book I read, we're getting into some bangers, right? I was being kind of pessimistic for a little bit. We're getting into some bangers. My first 5-star book of the year, yes, was actually ARC, and it comes out in May. This was, well, an audio ARC, but still an ARC. And this was Yerba Buena by Nina LaCour. This is my first Nina LaCour novel, and I know she mostly writes YA. So I was kind of like iffy about this one, but I read that, I looked it up, and this was an adult book. So I was like, oh my gosh, yes, adult, queer book, let's go. And this was absolutely fantastic. Such an amazing book. We follow 2 women. One is from Paradise, California, and she is really running away from her past. Her, the love of her life, at the very beginning of the story, like the first chapter, dies, is murdered, and is like believed that she knows about what happened, and she pretty much runs away from Paradise, California, to go to LA. And in order to get there, she has to like sell her body in order to get enough money to actually go and live in LA. Now, the other story takes place with the other girl. I don't know why the fuck I'm blanking on names today. We'll fix this anyways. But the other girl lives in LA, and she is just very stuck in her life. She is, I think, 25. She switched her major like 6 times. She's still trying to go through life, and she is just feeling very lost. She doesn't know what she's doing. Eventually these 2 girls meet, and they have a romance. And the reason why I gave this one so highly is, one, Nina LaCour can write. She can write a damn book. So props to her, props to her. But the other reason I gave this book is that I was able to relate a stupid amount to both of these main characters. A lot of their experiences, I've been in those exact same situations. It was weird. I was listening to this book while cooking, and there's a section with one of the girls, she was talking about her studio apartment and like how small it is and how weird it is, and some of the details was exactly the same as my studio apartment. I'm like, Nina LaCour, are you stalking me? Like, to the point where I was like, I need to sit down, I need to take a break from my cooking because this is a little intense. The relationship between them was so beautiful, and it was so nice to see that even though they had a relationship with themselves, like together, you were able to see how both of them were growing as people. And this was just such an amazing story. It was good. When it comes out, I'm gonna buy a physical copy. I know, I'm gonna do it. And I'm so excited. I already want to reread this book. It was so great, and y'all should read it, honestly. Yeah, it comes out in May, so definitely get a hands on your copy. All right, we're almost done. We got 2 more books to go. The next one I have is another Phase and Gaze book club pick. This was our book club pick for January, and I'll put, again, the link down below if you want to hear more of our thoughts about it. But this is The Darkness Outside Us by Elliot Schaefer. This is a YA sci-fi book, and funny enough, I didn't know literally anything about it when I got into this book, but it blew my fucking mind. I gave it a 5 stars. It was fantastic. And this is one of those books where I'm very much of like, oh wow, like if you don't tell me the plot of the story, I'm not gonna read it. This is one of those books where do not look at spoilers. Do not do it. It will affect your like view of it, because it's a sci-fi, but it's also very much a thriller. It is, it's very tense. There is very big plot twist, and it's very, like, it goes in places you wouldn't expect it to go. So if you're thinking just like a basic ass, like, oh, it's gonna be like a basic, like, 2 boys falling in love, like in space story, it is not. It is not. I'm telling you right now, it is not. So the last book I read was Love in the Big City by Song-Young Park. This is also another queer book. Apparently I put all of my queer books at the end of this video for some reason. Anyways, it's a book set in South Korea, and it mainly follows our main character Young going through his life, and a lot of it focuses on him just being a gay man in South Korea. You really get to see, again, his romances, his perspective on love and life, his relationship to his mother, who he has a very complicated relationship with, his relationship to one of his best friends, and just, again, some of the it's just an exploration on his relationships with other people, romantic, familial, friendship, I don't know, friendly, whatever, platonic, that's what it is. I couldn't think of the word. But well, this is a very beautifully written book. I think this is this author's first translated book into English, so when more of those books come out, I will definitely read them. It felt soothing. I felt like I really knew the main character, and I just wanted to like read about, so I was staring at a mosquito that is just, okay, it was on the outside. I almost shit my pants. Anyways, but I felt like I really knew the main character. Like, I knew what their actions were, their thoughts, and they just felt so real to me, which was kind of bizarre. I gave this one a 4 stars because I guess I didn't love it enough for it to be a 5 star. I don't know, it was just a really good book. I can't really explain it more past that. If you want a, like, I guess the character study or a seeing people's relationships and you're really like and interested in that, I would definitely recommend this book. It's also not long whatsoever. It's like 230 pages, and I don't know, I just really liked it. I can't really explain myself for that one. But yeah, those were about 11 of some recent books I've read. I also thought it'd be fun if I talked about some books I'm currently reading. Let me go get the book I'm reading. The physical book that I am reading is actually a reread. I read this book back in 2017. I saw a lot of people that I follow on Bookstagram either hauling the book or reading it for the first time, so I thought it was a good time to actually do a reread. And that is The Unbearable Lightness of Being by Milan Kundera. I am on page 169, a little more than halfway through. And it is a very pretentious novel, and it's pretty much about 2 couples, and they're all cheating on each other, sometimes with each other, and it just really talks about that. And also it takes place in France, but also in Prague around 1968 during the Russian invasion. But yeah, I am enjoying it, but again, it is very pretentious, so I don't know how I'm gonna rate it. It's also, I didn't realize how confusing it was. It's like, it feels like you're reading a story, but it also feels like the author has also read the story and is inserting his commentary like a book report inside the novel. So he'll randomly be like, oh, see, you know, the juxtaposition between this character and her mother is like this, and I'm like, why are we hyper analyzing like this? It's really random, but I'm enjoying it. And so then the audiobook I'm listening to, I actually started it today, and it's called Four Treasures of the Sky by Jenny Jingwu Zhang. I am so sorry. I'll fix that that pronunciation, because that was bad. I'm sorry, I didn't want to butcher that. But this is a historical fiction. I'm only like 21% of the way through. I have 5 hours and 43 minutes left, and it's so far it is about this one girl, and she seemed, or at least what it seems like, she is kidnapped from China. It takes place in about 1883, and she is shipped out to San Francisco. I just got to the part where she actually got sent, that she just arrived in San Francisco. It looks like she was in a brothel for a minute. I'm liking the writing style so far. The audiobook narrator is really good, and I don't know, I think it's gonna be good.
Alright, so this is editing me. For some reason, I completely forgot to finish off and close this video. Like, go me. As you can tell, it's been a while since I filmed, but hopefully you enjoyed this. If you did, please like, comment, and subscribe. I would like to be posting more videos soon. I'm going to be having a couple little projects, little things in the works, so hopefully you guys will enjoy that, but if not, then whatever. But yes, that's gonna be it. I will see you guys in another video. Goodbye.